Hello and welcome to the Walk It Like a Talk It, or was it? It is the second episode. I don't really know how to call it. What was it? A Walk It Like a Talk It? That was the worst intro ever. I will have to do that again. It's the it's the podcast. Hello and welcome to the second episode of my podcast. I literally forgot the name of my podcast, but that is no problem because we're gonna have an amazing guest today, which is Bernhard Reingruber, and Bernhard is a radical honesty trainer. And if you could introduce yourself to our guests, that would be amazing. There you go.
I notice pressure in my chest seeing you do that. And tension here. Hi.
Hi.
So great to be here. And I'm nervous, I want to say. That's already part of my introduction.
Yeah.
I imagine.
I noticed your introduction is already like a very radical honesty style, I'd say, since I did a workshop with you and I attended a couple of radical honesty community days, I'd say, with Sean. I'm familiar with the practice, and one of the practices is to say what you feel in the moment. And you noticed, what did you say, pressure in your chest or something like that? So that is already like very radical honesty style, to say what you feel in your body. And yeah, I'm interested if you want to say anything more before I start throwing my questions onto you.
Yeah, you said introduce myself.
Yes. If there's anything to introduce about.
Yeah, I imagine that's a tricky question frequently. In short, I think what I'm doing right now is working as a radical honesty trainer, but also as a leadership coach. So I'm trying to combine radical honesty with work in organizations in particular. And I think, that's a lot of the stuff that I do at the moment. Who am I? Can I imagine be a whole episode?
We're not going into spiritual who am I. We're going with surface level. This is what I do. This is what I did. Blah blah blah. The persona that we apparently
sounds
create.
good. Yeah. Well, then I can say probably I like my introduction that I often say I'm a recovering nice guy, a recovering perfectionist and high achiever, hiding behind English phrases and words, descriptions.
That's interesting. How do you hide behind English phrases and descriptions?
In the way that I use those three, like recovering nice guy, perfectionist, and high achiever in German as well. And then I say I hide behind English words. The effect is better in German, I would say.
Do you feel like there's a slightly different persona when you speak English versus when you speak German?
Yeah, I like that question. I've been thinking about that a couple of times myself. I think yes. And I imagine it has mostly to do with the age where I started to learn and practice English more. It's a completely different, I think I got, in that stage in my life, I also drew a lot of coolness from the language and from being able to speak more cool things. And then
I resonate so much with that,
really. And also I imagine I'm a bit more, at least slightly more disconnected from my actual experience when I'm talking in English. It's a bit of a buffer, I would say. Yeah,
that's interesting. I noticed myself being able to use English language as a tool to be more energetic and more expressive, more extrovert.
It's like, rawr.
And I also asked myself the question in the past, like, why is it like that? And I would come to the same conclusions. It's like the age I learned English, I guess the culture which I absorbed the language from, which was YouTube by a great degree, of course, also school. And I would be interested to hear what people have to say about me, how they perceive my English self versus my German self. Like, how big are the differences in personality?
Yeah, also I judge English to be more direct in some sense, which is sometimes also helpful for radical honesty. I just think of the phrasing of I resent you for, rather than ich bin ärgerlich auf dich oder ich ärgere mich über dich.
Yeah.
It's like a very active transitive verb, basically,
Yeah.
which is much more powerful, much more going to the direct experience in the here and now. And I think German works well too.
German works well too. I think it's the consciousness and the attention we actually bring to the language and how we feel in the moment, how we express ourselves, and the language itself. Yes, of course it does something, but I think there's a different layer that is much more important than the language itself. I think language is super interesting. Like, this language describes things like that, makes you have different perspectives when you say the same thing, but that's a whole different topic by itself. Yeah, I think we already had a very good dive in without even answering one of my questions, I think. And I also wanted to say, like, I also felt anxious and nervous in the beginning doing the intro, especially since I fucked up the first one and I had to start over again. I felt like I don't even know the name of my own podcast. What is going on?
Yeah, I appreciate you for mentioning that and for disclosing, because I imagine you will cut it out, the first beginning, and so it's...
Maybe not. Maybe I'll leave it in. We'll see in the edit. So I would love to ask you, how long have you been practicing radical honesty? And since you are the only legally, how do you say that in English? The only legal coach of radical honesty in Austria.
The only honest person.
You're the only honest, the only honest person in Austria. How long have you been doing it? Since when have you been a trainer?
Yeah, so I would say since, what's 2023? So 6 years now. 6 years.
Since you started?
Yeah. Since I started Radical Honesty, and I got certified as a Radical Honesty trainer in 2020.
2020.
Still from like Brad Blanton still certified me.
Personally, I think you once mentioned that you met him in person.
Yeah, I met him in person, but the certification this time was not in person. It was basically a group of people, and that was the first time he was not the only person to decide who gets certified. And
is he becoming old and senile and not being able to judge properly anymore? It's a joke, by the way.
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, probably. And at the same time, I think he, as I said, he retired, and like a group of 10 trainers took over his business, basically bought him out of the company, and now is running the Radical Honesty Institute.
Do you know how old he is at this moment?
I think 83, 84.
83, 84. Do you know, like, the how many trainers before you became a trainer? Like, the list of... now my English is breaking. I guess it's also an irrelevant question, but I'm kind of interested. How many trainers were trainers before you were a trainer?
Oh, I have no idea.
You have no idea.
Not that many. There aren't that many Radical Honesty trainers. I'm like, yeah, and I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was still below 30 trainers in the whole world.
That leaves room to grow for this whole
even
section.
Below, I'm not even sure if there is more than 20. I don't know. I would have to count.
I see. So you have been practicing for 6 years. You've been trainer for 3 years. Maybe you can share with us a little bit what being direct with your words and your thoughts and your feelings, aka radically honest, did for you in your life, and maybe also for the people around you.
Yeah, my mind is going to lots of places now. Notice a bit of relaxation in my back here. Interesting. I like your question, and I think it has a lot to do with, for me, with freedom. Like, basically not giving as many fucks about what I should do, what my parents or society, or like in German we have that saying, basically, was man so tut, what people need to do, or what the rules are, basically.
The shoulds and should nots.
Yeah, and I think I freed myself a bit from that, at least a bit. I think I'm not cured.
Freed yourself from what? From that, sorry, yeah.
From the shooting and the constant, from the amount of shoulds and obligations in my life. I think I'm much more like responsible, I would say, or determined in a way. Freer, more open, more alive in general, like a bit more connected to myself and to the people that I am in contact with and in relationship with. I think for some people I got a bit more uncomfortable. You asked how was it for the people?
Yes, the environment, yes.
And mostly also not. I think I'm still somehow too nice sometimes, smiling a bit too much. I'm like, notice tension in my face now when I say that. And at the same time, like just being more at ease with being me, I would say that's the main thing. And being more at ease when other people would like me to be different, or in general, being more at ease with what's coming towards me and what I'm bringing.
I notice the same thing when I'm really becoming honest, and sometimes it's still a hurdle for me. The term people pleaser is quite a big one. And I just recently listened to a really cool talk where the guy said you cannot address people pleasing by itself. People pleasing is a cause of the fear of rejection. So you really have to like approve of yourself in here instead of waiting for someone else to approve, because if you don't do that, you will always try to be perfect for them. And most of the times that is not who you really are. That is not in alignment. And this creates that weird split where we try to be someone who we are not. And that gives us a living experience, which is simply not pleasant. And being honest is, I think, part of being part of our real self, our authentic self, which gives us a beautiful and relaxed and calm and straightforward, a clear mind.
I really like what you're saying. I jumped to one thing that is currently that I'm very occupied with, basically sourcing my own sense of approval, security, and control within myself rather than on the outside. And I think radical honesty is a wonderful practice to first make transparent where you don't source security, approval, and control on the inside, because you're actually bringing it out and you're bringing it into contact with other people. And at the same time, getting more relaxed when you notice, you're outside, the people around you are, first of all, not there to give you approval, security, and control. Like, it's not their job, basically.
It's so true.
And at the same time, getting more or coming more at ease with the fact that seeking it from the other people is a futile task in a way.
Yeah.
So, it's awful at the same time, because I love it much more to have other people to blame and to to get security from I don't know what, other people, basically. My relationship, my fiance or friends, and they simply don't provide for that.
I love what you said. It's not their job. It's probably not even on the forefront of their mind. It's not on my forefront of it's not on the forefront of my mind to approve of the people around me all the time. And still, most of us kind of look for that all the time. It's like looking for something that is not even there. And somehow we judge ourselves on the inside all the time because of how we perceived people judging us, maybe, or actually did judge us, whatever. It's a really deep topic, and I think it's a conscious task that we have to do to give that approval to ourselves again and again until we actually rewrite our operating system in here until it's becoming an automatic thing, more or less, or a natural thing.
Yeah, I would even go one step before that, catching yourself when you do it in the first place, catching yourself when you try to control other people. I imagine I try to control you and the conversation now a bit with saying, no, one step before that. But in general, like noticing when you start doing it and being honest and transparent about it.
Yeah.
And the moment you do that, I sometimes start laughing a bit or giggling about my own mind coming up with another like attempt to control everything.
That's good.
Not always. Not always. Like I think I want to sound like an enlightened person right now. I think I'm not at all sourcing approval, control, and security within myself all the time. So I'm probably, but yeah, I have fun noticing more.
Trying to control me.
Yeah, trying to control you. Also trying to get approval from people who are listening.
Yeah, click the like button, please. Leave Berni some
love
in the comments.
Please give me some
Tell him
approval.
that he's enough and that he doesn't have to try hard to be loved by us.
Shit. It works. It really works on me.
Beautiful. Or maybe not. You decide for yourself. Let me have a quick look on my notes because I think I wanted to ask you if we can do a little bit of a radical honesty practice and exercise. And you said we can do that even though we're just two people. So if you're open to that, I would leave the stage for you now to maybe guide us through a 5-minute practice or something like that.
Yeah, I think like I'm not sure if even all the people who are listening to this know what radical honesty is, and I think like I make it important to say a few words about what it actually is.
Yes,
first,
please. I wanted to ask you that.
Before we go into something.
Yes.
Because like I worry that people frequently misunderstand it as an excuse for being rude out in the world, like. You said I should be radically honest. I tell you all the judgments and blah and vomit like out all the thoughts that I have. And I think that's where it's sometimes misunderstood as like, and this part or that way of relating honestly, like just saying what I think and being all about like throwing stuff out at other people. I would judge that or call that brutal honesty.
Is that what you would say, not being considerate of the other people's experience?
I'm not sure. Like, what I'm missing there is the being in contact with another person and noticing what is going on for me, not only in my head, but also in my body, basically, as in bodily sensations. And also with my senses, like what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, for example, what I can feel, but mostly hearing and seeing, I would say. And then like the single thoughts that are going through my mind. So it's like inside, it's outside, and it's upside down because sometimes our thoughts are a bit like out of control, all right? Like a bit weird at times. Yeah, and talking about those things to another human being in direct contact is what radical honesty is about. And I think there's the difference because I'm usually when I'm in relationship, I don't just throw shit at other people. I don't just throw out judgments. I'm also somehow concerned how the other person is doing. Frequently, at least, that's my experience. Like I get, I don't know, worried or anxious when I want to tell people that I'm pissed off or that I'm like sometimes I start worrying about our relationship and bringing that into contact as well and into our conversation as well. That's a game changer. So to me, being present from moment to moment and reporting what I can notice inside, outside, and up in my head, basically. That's radical honesty.
Sounds good to me. That's why I assume I still every now and then show up at the community days and be in contact with the people in the group and so on. Yeah,
and there's a huge value in that. I want to say, like, if you have an experience for example, like an experience of anger or of appreciation or like whatever it is, the experience that you're having of boredom, when you let yourself have that experience and when you let the experience come and then go, basically when you have that experience, it can come and then go. But if you resist that experience, it basically persists and it sticks around. So you're staying angry, you're staying appreciative, which sounds like a great thing to do, and still
let's resist our appreciation just for the good feelings that we can keep.
It's basically then starting to put people on a pedestal and thinking, oh, they're so great and I'm so small. I'm particularly great at doing that, putting other people on pedestals and making like huge authority figures out of people I barely...
Who are you putting on a pedestal at this time around?
Yeah, I think a lot of the people that I'm reading books of or taking courses in, I don't think like, that person wrote a book and wow, so like they must really have understood something, you know.
Does it motivate you to write another book or to write your first book maybe?
Yes, it does.
Are you on it right now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay, we will inform you if he's bringing another book, probably about radical honesty and similar things.
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Honest leadership.
Honest leadership. I would love to go into all those things, but I think it's time for the practice. Do you agree?
We can.
Let's
go into the practice.
Let's do.
The most simple form would be to just scan your awareness continuum for anything you can notice right now. Like that's the most fundamental thing. We can spice it up a bit, but that would be the first thing. I could say, for example, my thighs are a bit tight right now. I've got a bit of like holding some tension here, not breathing as fully. And in my head, there are thoughts. Yeah, I worry that I'm doing a good enough presentation of radical honesty, being exciting enough, and also wanting to be seen as smart by you. Yeah, so that's the thoughts. If I'm scanning, and you can try it too.
Yeah,
we can see whether we can spice it up a bit.
Just a quick comment. I always love it when people give what I perceive as like a vulnerable share. What you just did, like if I would say something like that, I would feel vulnerable. Like when you say you want to be seen as a smart person by me, is like, I don't know, it moves something within me, and I feel like something softens, and I feel like more open and receptive of you, and more appreciative of you, and I guess, I don't know, a certain part of love maybe comes to the surface. Yeah. So I felt like sharing that.
I appreciate you for saying love and all those things, and I think that's exactly what happens when we open up a bit about our experience.
Yeah,
I think we are some part of us is seeing ourselves in the other person, and also seeing that there is a real human being that is also somehow not perfect and not holding up like the perfect facade and stuff like that. And I think, that's I appreciate you for saying softening.
Thank you. I noticed that my body makes tension without, like, I don't feel like I'm doing the tension, but like my muscles in my feet, they tense up and they release again. It's like very fluid process at the moment. I feel some pressure in between my eyebrows, for example, slightly sweaty hands. And I also notice, like, every once in a while a thought comes up that says, like, am I doing good enough right now? Is the podcast, are we doing good enough? Is the podcast interesting enough? Are the people already clicking off? Am I paying good enough attention? Am I actually following what you were saying? Am I worried that I'm so in my thoughts that it's like becoming a really strange thing where I link off of what you say is like small moments, and I'm just like swirling my thoughts, like, am I paying attention? And like, what is he saying? Process that, and I'm worrying about that so much. I cannot follow you while worrying about not following you. It's a weird thing.
Beautiful. Like, I appreciate you so much for sharing all that. Yeah. And how is it now? What do you notice now in your body after saying all that?
Pretty much the same as I mentioned 1.5 minutes probably ago. Okay. And I just noticed, like, right now I feel clear again. I feel here, like, kind of like clear mind. That's my state right now. And I totally feel like saying, and it's like going up and down again. In a moment I will be a little bit foggy again, and then I will bring myself back, maybe with a mantra that I use in this conversation, like relax, I feel my body, I bring my attention in my body and just like let it go. If you don't understand it, it's okay. You don't need to understand every single word. You can jump back in. And then I feel the worry coming up. I was like, oh, is he thinking that he cannot even follow a normal conversation? It's like, okay, let that go, whatever.
So great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all that. And it's so interesting to me. Like, sometimes I imagine that to be also quite exhausting, to be thinking, should I say that? Should I interrupt now? You know, like, and I imagine, like, not being honest about and not being transparent about what is going on for us. To me, it's quite exhausting, actually. It's like I'm exhausting myself when I try to keep up some kind of like facade or pretense, basically, or like I'm a persona.
Yeah, we're kind of like totally caught up in our mind, and we're totally self-occupied. Yeah. And then it's like, oh yeah, I'm still with you, and then you go, I'm totally occupied. Yeah. It's that weird fake front that we put up, and we're not showing how we actually feel and think inside at the moment, how our state is.
And then we invest so much energy into keeping up that play, kind of, and we act as if we were listening all the time and nodding, you know, like there's all these kinds of, like, I love those active listening trainings where people are taught to just nod and say yes and a couple of times while the other person is speaking. That's sometimes even what we train people to do. And also what we got trained in, I think, growing up, like to...
So basically, you're saying you were told, like, you listen to a person by nodding and maybe raising your eyebrows because it looks like you're really interested, and repeating their words. Oh, just like you said something, and I'm just like rephrasing you to let you know that. And sometimes I think those things are valuable, but if you just follow them as a step-by-step program because you want to be seen or like give the impression or get something out of the other person by doing that, throw it away.
Yeah, it's another attempt at controlling other people's perception of us, basically.
Yeah,
that's how I think of it.
Yeah. And I liked one thing specifically that you said. What was it again? I forgot it. I just remember that it's a really exhausting task to be in the mind and like to pretend that front and not showing ourselves. And I think I resonate so strong with that, because when I'm relaxed and I don't make any effort to be seen in a certain way, and I'm just here and I go with whatever comes up in the next moment, that's when I'm the most relaxed. I guess that's when I'm the most likable. That's when I'm the most authentic. That's when I feel literally good, when I'm not making a huge effort.
Yeah.
Like that kind of effort.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm an expert in efforting. I know, like, the moments in workshops, for example, when I start sitting at the edge of my seat and I really try to do something, you know, like I really want to convince people that what I have to say is really great. Or like trying to have some kind of effect. Like it's an almost desperate attempt to have an effect on other people. And it's like tense, and it doesn't work. Like, I don't work in that sense, because like what is being transported is mostly the tension, and what is being created very often is resistance. And I think that's the same with a lot of the communication and conversations we sometimes have. Yeah, the more we put effort in it, the more tricky I think things sometimes get.
Yeah.
Even though we think we're doing a good job, and
Yeah, I think there are different kinds of efforts, but it has to come from I don't know, I guess the right place, which I can barely describe. I use the term intuition a lot when there's like a feeling, a genuine feeling that drives you, and you have like a clear goal. But to be honest, I don't feel very equipped to talk about that place at the moment. And I would love to switch the topic, to move on. I'm not sure if we properly exhausted the exercise.
yeah.
If you feel like there's more to that, we can do that. Otherwise, I have another question or a couple of questions.
Well, that's a very basic thing to start scanning your awareness continuum. Basically, we call it awareness continuum, like inside, outside, upside down. Scanning that and reporting about that out loud. So that's a very simple thing. A bit more tricky, I imagine, would be, and I think let's see where we go from there. Is answering the question, like, for example, how do you want to be perceived by the people who are listening to this podcast right now?
So you're asking me that question right now.
Can answer if you want to. Like, I can answer it for myself. I want to be perceived, and I think that's why I said I think we partially answered that question before as well. I think I want to be seen as smart, as as a very present, very connected with my experience kind of trainer for radical honesty. Somebody somebody who I would give my approval to.
Yeah.
And put trust in.
I see. And I would like to be seen as a person that is very entertaining and funny, and has good questions to ask, and interesting insights and content to provide, because that means that people will subscribe and like and comment to the channel, which leads to what I want to have, which is to be able to live off producing content. So yeah, I have that hope in the background. Like, I know like the healthiest approach is just to do that and just like to put it out there if I want to put it out there, and just let it do its thing. Like, in my mind, I can still like take action and stuff, but I'm like oscillating between those two states where I'm like, okay, I want to be that and I want to do that, and I guess then I'm starting to put on a little bit of a front, which is not totally authentic. And then there are times and moments where I'm like totally relaxed and like I don't give a single fuck with what happens to the upload. But then it kicks back in and I have to check like views, comments, blah, blah, blah. And it's like a weird cycle. And I know that other people who start YouTube and everything are going through the same thing. A friend of mine also like can almost call it like a young YouTuber, and we were on the phone 2 days ago and we want to make some sketches. One is the topic of the struggles of a YouTuber, which one of is like always checking what has been new, and I just noticed that I've gone really far off from the question you've asked me.
Yeah, and I noticed how I'm tensing up with the speed you're talking. I'm like,
It's interesting.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
It's intensity, I think.
So to re-answer the question, now I don't give a fuck anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you. Thank you for saying what you said. And I think it's quite exciting to share something like that, especially while being recorded.
Yeah. I don't know, I feel strangely calm in front of cameras since a while. I started doing something that they called the podcast exercise, where you sit down in front of the camera, talk, and I guess that made me comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah, I want to own, like, I'm excited sharing stuff like that in front of the camera.
Yeah, me too, somehow. And I don't know, it also came up, like, my latest ayahuasca journey half a year ago made it also super clear that I'm seeking approval through those YouTube videos, which brings me back to a part of the conversation we had before, that approval has to come from inside, because even though might get all those likes and comments and whatever, might be one day with a lot of subscribers, if it's coming from the outside, it can always leave again and leave me empty in the end.
Yeah, and there is the other side of that question as well, right? Like, which we could answer if you're up for it. The other side would be, how do I not want to be perceived by those cameras, by those people watching?
I see. Yeah, that's basically the total opposite of what I want to be perceived, which is like I'm stupid, or maybe I talk too much and talk too loud, so that people who sit in front of me or behind the screens tense up, click away. I don't want to be perceived as boring. Yeah, that's the first things that come up for me.
I think I strongly resonated with boring. Boring. And then I think I don't want to be perceived as somebody who thinks a lot, like being too much up in my head. And yeah.
Classical opposite of what you wanted to be perceived as, present. Yeah.
And the interesting thing to me about this exercise is like that we do all those, like we are all those things at some times in our lives, right? Like sometimes we are simply boring, sometimes we are exciting, and I imagine like at least in my experience, I very often have it that I just want to have the positive things, which isn't so true anymore. But
and I think we get obsessive about being positive, which is already diving into the negative.
Yeah, which then sucks, because once you attach to something and you avoid the other thing by all costs, you're guaranteed to get more from the stuff that you avoid.
Yeah.
At some level.
Yeah.
You know? Like everything you push away, you make a taboo. That basically goes underground and gets a life of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have to say, I love this conversation that we're having right now. And for some reason, this little note mingled itself into the other notes that I took for our podcast here. And it was like just like a thought that I had. And it's written in German. I will just like translate it real quick. It's about the new era of social media content. And I thought, well, sure, entertainment will always be a factor. But I think what will rise, and that's just like a little prediction that I would like to make, is where people make content where they dive into conversations like this. And this will like become much more widespread, where people show themselves vulnerably in front of the camera. Because I think we are on an awakening society, and it's slowly going there. And I think content where people expose themselves, where they do practices like this in front of the camera, this will be an important step in, I don't know, future generations, maybe in this generation. And I would love to be a part of that.
Well, I imagine you are right now.
I guess I'm doing what I want to see in the world, yes. And I'm grateful for you being here right now, because I don't think with every person conversation would take this direction. And I don't know. Not saying that I wouldn't enjoy other conversations with other people, but I guess this is like my preferred type of conversation.
Yeah, I feel warm and appreciative of you when you say that.
I feel connected to you. And I feel a little nervous right now, and my head's like, the thing is going on. Yeah.
It's a bit of embarrassing, I imagine. Is it?
There was something, I judged myself for a moment. Like, am I too soft right now? Like, are people going to, like, again, like, judge me for whatever I just shared at the moment? Was I really, really precise, honest with what I said? This is something I never said in front of the camera, or maybe never really said to another person, about this little insight that, and I'm, like, insecure about this, like, oh, is my prediction going to be right? And, yeah.
Well, let's make it right.
Let's make it right? Oh, I need to take a breath.
Yeah, let's create it to be right.
yeah, taking breaths helps. Yeah. And I'm curious if you are ready to dive into another topic or other topics.
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So
there's a bit of
and you're
almost, you know, like the moment when you drive over like over a bump.
The moment where you're like in the air, basically.
Yeah.
I see. So what I'm interested in right now is psychedelics. People who know me know I love psychedelics, and I love them in a special way. I think they can be a very profound healing tool. And I always like to advise to do them in a certain setting and not just throw them in and go partying and stuff. That's not the way I advise them. And yeah, people know that I'm into this stuff, and I would like to know, are you into this stuff? Psychedelics, psychedelic medicine, plant medicine.
Yes and no.
Yes or no?
I would say. I think I'm quite cautious still with psychedelics, and I'm very curious at the same time, and also already had quite a number of experiences. Yeah, that's what I can say. And mostly what is prevailing right now still is a bit of cautiousness.
Cautiousness because of what exactly makes you cautious of those substances? I'm too, by the way.
Yeah. Well, I think, as I see it, like I want to listen basically to my body, like, and also to whether I'm being called by something and really like feel inspired to do something, or when I'm pressuring myself into some experience because a lot of people said, "Oh, it's a great thing, do it," and you know, like right now, I think pop culture is that psychedelics are becoming a bit more mainstream, and lots of people I know have experimented quite a bit with psychedelics. And especially like once you start getting into a bit more personal development, like lots of people at least are intrigued by it and by the potential. Also, I've been reading quite a bit, and not only set and setting, but also like your family history, things like that. I think should be. I want to take them into account, and I'm really sensitive to, like, do I feel called right now or not? Is there some clear intention that I'm having? Yeah, that's I think.
I like the way I like the way you approach it, and the way you presented your view on this. And I don't know, somehow my interest faded a little bit as you gave your answer. Still, I
take that personal.
You take that personal. Oh no, it's not like it's uninteresting, but it's like, I don't know. I feel like that answer did something to me. What exactly? I don't know. I'm still gonna ask you a follow-up question. So you said you had your experiences. Have you had any benefits or disbenefits maybe? Which substances, medicines did you try?
Yeah, so I experimented with ayahuasca, but as well 5-MeO DMT, and a bit with mushrooms. Yeah, that's mostly it. And my experiences were entirely positive, like really beautiful and connecting somehow. Like, yeah, I'm really grateful for the experiences I had, and and also somehow protective of them somehow. It's interesting.
Protective in the way that you don't just want to share it with anybody in the world?
I noticed right now I'm a bit like, I want to protect my memories in a way.
I see.
Interesting. That's coming up the first time for me.
Okay. I'm still going to ask you a question. Of course, you will answer or not, depending on how you feel about it. What I'm particularly interested right now is, do you feel like it brought up suppressed emotions that you were able then to work through, or brought you back into contact with parts of yourself that you might have abandoned in the past because of cultural conditioning or internalized judgment from outside?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's in that sense, it works a bit like a radical honesty workshop. It's like in a radical honesty workshop, you still have kind of the sense of control, I would say, that like it depends on you, what you want to share and stuff like that. Like psychedelics just open you up,
Yes.
depending on what it is that you're engaging with. And they are bringing up like I one very profound experience that really connected me with like some own past hurt mostly, and also brought that into the like into healing light, actually, like making myself much more at ease with the whole yeah situation memory with myself at the end of the day. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And I would love to go into more details in not just this area, but since the conversation I feel is really nice and flowing, maybe on another occasion. But for now, I'd say due to the respect that I have for your time, I would call in the ending for this episode now.
Call it in.
Call it in. We're calling it in. The end is close.
Come ending.
And I say thank you, Berni, for coming.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me and for having that conversation with me. I also feel more connected with you after having that conversation.
Wonderful. Well, then I'd say if anybody is interested in Berni's work, or whatever, we will put all the links to his social media website, to his work, down in the description box, and you can check that out. And any final words from you? Maybe to the people, maybe to the ethers of the universe?
Maybe like no.
No?
I'm craving actually more for a sigh and for silence.
Yeah.
Thank you.